And welcome back once again to Horror Month 2017 and the Box Office Maniacs with our next chapter in the Chucky collection box set, Blu-ray, limited edition. I don't know why it's limited edition, but it's limited edition box set, black stuff.
It's limited until the next one comes out, is what it is.
But anyway, we're watching the next edition, the next chapter in the Chucky saga, which is called
Bride of Chucky.
And this is the point, Vince, where Chucky becomes a rock star. I mean, this is it. This is where he pretty much became Chucky. This is his height of popularity. I mean, this is the movie that, even though he was popular in the other ones, this is it. This is what blew him up. It's basically the Nightmare on Elm Street 3 of Child's Play films.
Exactly. This is where he gained most of his popularity, because by this time he was already starting to get jokey and punny and using all those little one-liners and stuff just like Freddy did, but this one sent him in the stratosphere of that.
I imagine at this point you two must have a lot of questions. You do know who I am.
Oh yeah, this is where he just went. He's where he basically became Chucky. I mean, he was Chucky in the other ones, but he was really Chucky in this one. First, let me say, this is probably my favorite Child's Play out of all of them. Every one of them, this is so far my favorite. I loved everything about this film. And the reason I like it so much is because it's about Chucky. It's about him. And all the other films were about Andy or him trying to, get somebody else's soul. This is about Chucky. This is Chucky's story.
Yeah, you're right. It becomes more about him than it does anybody else in the film. It becomes more about his story, and you get to learn a little bit more of the Charles Lee Ray backstory. They're actually developing the Chucky character a little bit in this movie.
So how did you end up like this?
Well, it's a long story.
It sure is.
In fact, if it was a movie, it would take 3 or 4 sequels just to do it justice.
You were talking about how they bring him back in every film. This one makes sense. It actually makes sense how they bring him back in the movie. And right from the beginning, the first shot of the film where they're like walking down the aisles and you see Jason, supposed to be Jason's hockey mask, and Freddy's glove, and you already kind of know the tone of this film. It's just fun, and it's what the movie was. It was so much fun. I loved this film from beginning to end, and it just rocked. I mean, it came on with Living Dead Girl, which I didn't even know was made for this film. It was Rob Zombie. It's one of my favorite songs of Rob Zombie, and this movie just rocked.
Yeah, completely with Rob Zombie in it. Oh, yeah.
And I really like Jennifer Tilly in this film. She's so good. And all the actors in this film are really good. They had John Ritter in here. And I think, again, that's the difference between this and the other 3, is the acting is actually really good in this film.
Yeah, it was so much better than Child's Play 3, I'll say that.
And I love the beginning where Jennifer Tilly brings him back from the dead and she stitches up his face, and there's a whole reason behind she's doing that, and it's a great, cool reason. And this whole film is just like that. It's just cool. It's just a really freaking cool movie. Sort of like Phantasm 2. It's just cool.
And I remember when I first saw the trailers and stuff for this, I was like, really? The Bride of Chucky? Really? And I know a lot of people that, even when I mentioned it to them, my friends and coworkers and whatnot, I'd say, well, I kind of want to see Bride of Chucky. They would go, Bride of Chucky? Why would you want to see Bride of Chucky? Really? They're going in there, they're doing Bride of Chucky? And it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense, actually. It kind of, some of it seems like it makes sense. And this is before I even actually saw the movie. And again, I didn't actually get to go to the theaters to see it, so I ended up watching it on video later on, but I loved it. I was like, this is great. I really wish I had seen it at the theaters.
Yeah, and again, not only do you have the one cool puppet, and again, this is where his face gets stitched together, and I think for whatever reason, that's the image of Chucky that everybody really remembers, is his face stitched together, not, from the other films. And that's sort of what's like burned in everybody's minds of that's what Chucky should look like. And, then they bring Jennifer Tilly in as the bride, and there's so many references to the other films, and it's pretty funny. He's like, well, it takes 3 movies sometimes to get one right,
Yeah, it's actually not taking itself so seriously throughout the whole thing. It's not. It's a lot of it's really tongue in cheek, the whole time, and it still maintains that dark humor that Chucky has.
And this is also, I believe, the return of Ed Gale. He played Chucky in this film. And again, they used him quite a lot in this film because you could tell when it's not Chucky, like when he's crawling around on the ground and stuff like that. You can tell it's a person, which I didn't really mind that much. It was okay, but you can tell that he really used a guy in the suit, for this film.
Actually, by this point, the robotic stuff had gotten really, really good, and they used a lot of that still, even though they did have CGI in the film, which I didn't realize until I watched this Blu-ray. I didn't really, because on some of it you can tell when it's CGI and when it isn't. Like, for instance, the spider.
Oh. Yeah.
When it lands on his face, that's a CG spider. When they show it again, it's the real spider.
And again, more references. They made quite a lot of references to other horror films, like when the nails go into somebody's face, he's like, that looks familiar. I thought that was really funny.
True horror fans would probably recognize it right off, but just somebody casually watching this, I don't think they'd really realize what movie that's actually referencing.
Well, Hellraiser, for those who don't know. Pinhead.
I think what it was is they couldn't add it to the beginning where they actually showed Freddy's glove and Michael Myers and...
The Michael Myers mask looked fantastic in the beginning of it.
That's true. It did.
It looked better than the Halloween movies.
Also, what makes this movie so great, I believe, as well, is they've got the director, Ronnie Yu, to film it. He did this movie, and he did a fantastic job with that. Kudos to him. I liked the way he filmed this. It was really, really good.
Yeah, he did a great job with this. Ronnie Yu did a spectacular job bringing Chucky back, and he brought him back big. He did such an amazing job with him in this film. Because, again, they made it so much fun, and they put the rock music in it. And then they gave him, Jennifer Tilly, so he had 2 of them, basically. And they were still murdering old school style and some new school style. And the story was good. They actually had a good plot to this film. And it's just everything. I love this film. I still think it's the best out of all of the Chuckies so far.
Yeah, I love Jennifer Tilly in this. I also like John Ritter in this. And then we had the person at this point in time was a rising star was Katherine Heigl, who is now more of a prominent star than she was then. But we have all those 3 people who are now big stars in this movie, and they all did a great job. I love the way Chucky looked in here. I loved the acting. I loved the story. It was such a big improvement. And I remember you saying something in Child's Play 3 that you liked the way it deviated and went into a different direction and all of this thing. And I said just seemed like it was too weird. It was just too over the top weird, or it just changed too much. This one, it does change, but it makes sense in the change. And like you said, when they bring him back, that makes sense. And how they do it makes sense. It's like somebody finally sat down and really thought it out.
So overall, this movie, for me, gets Golden Machete!
I can finally say this, is that I would give it a Golden Machete!
So much cool in this movie. That's just absolute so much cool in this film. But there are extras on the box set for this one. Unlike the first 2, we do get some extras on here. So let's jump into the extras right now.
Okay, before I get into this first extra on this Blu-ray, I want to talk just real quick about the menus on each one of these discs. Each one of the discs in the Chucky collection so far, out of the 4 films we've done, every time you put a Blu-ray in there, it comes up with the Universal logo, and then it goes pretty much right into the movie. There really isn't a menu until it actually says at the beginning of it, it says you hit the pop-up button on your remote, so you get the pop-up menu. So while you're watching the film, because it starts right into the film, you hit the pop-up menu, and that's what brings up the actual menu of the film. Meanwhile, in the background, the movie is still playing. So that's how they do the menus on these things, and it's kind of odd. It's kind of weird that it does that. It doesn't directly take you to a menu and where you can choose what you want to do. You have to hit this pop-up button to find everything. So it's just kind of odd the way they did it. Okay, so the first extra on this Blu-ray is a feature called Spotlight on Location, the making of The Bride of Chucky. I guess the Spotlight on Location is something that they must have filmed for, I would say, for like maybe the E channel or something like that. You know, basically this whole feature is kind of like a big press kit feature. And it is a behind the scenes of The Bride of Chucky, and it is a making of The Bride of Chucky, but they don't really show too much. They have interviews with all these different people. And you do see some behind the scenes stuff and behind the scenes footage, but it's mostly interviews. And it's just interviews with Don Mancini and David Kirshner and Jennifer Tilly and Katherine Heigl, the stars of the film. And you see them, and this is something that they filmed way back when they actually were making Bride of Chucky. So a lot of these people are a lot younger as well when you see these interviews. But it's not a bad feature. It's okay, but it's just kind of what it is. It's not really a making of. I mean, Kevin Yeager's on there, and he kind of talks about what he had to do with the puppets and everything and working everything. So that was kind of cool. Don Mancini's on there, and he's talking about how he wrote Bride of Chucky. And then there's, of course, David Kirshner, he's the one that actually came up with the idea for the Bride of Chucky after watching Bride of Frankenstein. Go figure. So it was actually a really good idea, and I'm glad he did it because I liked the movie and I liked what they did with it. But as far as this feature goes, it's okay. It's not anything really special or spectacular, but it's all right for what it is.
All right, so the one extra that I am reviewing here for Bride of Chucky, I don't remember which one it was, is the commentary with Ronnie Yu. Now, normally I am so overwhelmed here with Horror Month that it's really hard to sit and watch a commentary and rewatch an entire movie again. But this commentary was so good, I actually sat and watched the entire thing without stopping. Ronnie Yu did a fantastic job with this commentary. And the reason it was so interesting is because he talks about the actual movie. And it's great. And he talks a lot about Chucky himself. And the reason I think that Chucky looked so good in this film is because they were trying to use like realistic looking skin on him. And you can tell it. I mean, it was something different about him when you're watching it and you're like, oh yeah, that's it. He actually looks like he has real skin in this movie. And it did. It made a big difference. And also, this movie is crystal clear. It's amazing looking. And he goes into detail about why it looks so good. It's because he used pretty much high stock film for this film to make it look as good as it did. And it really is a big standout from the rest of the movies. It's absolutely incredible, so clear, and I don't know why other people don't do that. Just, hey, let's get a good stock film here and do this. And again, like I said, he talks a lot about how they created Chucky and about how it takes like 12 people to move him around. One person to do the eyes and the arms and the legs and the fingers and the arm. And and all that, and it's just really cool insight. And all the other actors and directors and stuff in the commentaries that I've seen up to this point really just don't talk about that much. And he went into big detail about how these dolls were moving and how they were created, and it was really fascinating. And the other thing he talked about in this film was he tried to use as much practical effects as he could, but watching it the second time, I did notice a lot of CG. And there was quite a lot of CG in this film. He's like, well, I tried not to use that much CG, but here's a CG shot. Oh, I did this CG shot. Oh, there's another CG shot coming up. Oh, that's CG. But he's like, yeah, I didn't use that much CG in this movie. I think the most obvious one, and probably the worst one, was when they were on the bed and the mirror broke and all the CG glass came down and stuck them. So that was definitely a horrible CG shot. But for the most part, yeah, he did use some practical stuff, and it's really nice to see that when people do that. There are some blank spots in this commentary where he'll stop for 5 or 10 minutes, but for the most part, he talks pretty much through the whole thing. It's pretty much, I think, right around the wedding sequence is where he pretty much stops talking. I mean, there's like almost no talking at all during that sequence. But, like I said, he does talk pretty well through the whole thing and don't stop too often. Again, just a great commentary. Fantastically done, Ronnie Yu. This is the way you really do commentary. I really enjoyed it from beginning to end, and it's rare, like I said, especially during horror month for me to sit for an entire film and watch the commentary like this again. But I was so pulled in by it and was so interested in what he had to say, I sat through the whole thing and watched it. So it was really that good.
Okay, so the next commentary is a commentary by Jennifer Tilly, Brad Dourif, and Don Mancini, who wrote and created Child's Play. So Jennifer Tilly, of course, plays Tiffany in the film, and Brad Dourif does the voice of Chucky. I have to say, this commentary was actually really fun. It was really cool to listen to. It was entertaining. It was informative. The only thing about it is that Jennifer Tilly really loves to talk. So she pretty much dominates the entire commentary throughout like the whole movie. And there's a lot of back and forth between her and Don Mancini. Brad Dourif gets in there ever so often, and he starts to talk. And when you do hear him talk about scenes and talk about things that they did on set and everything, it's entertaining, and it makes me think, why didn't they do this for that Child's Play commentary where it was Chucky doing commentary way back on the Scream Factory edition of Child's Play 1. Every time I heard him on here, it was like, I really wish they would have had him do this on Child's Play 1, on the parts that Chucky wasn't Chucky, Either way, I mean, it's a fun commentary. It's not too bad, and it's fun to listen to these guys talk about their experiences and how they made Bride of Chucky. And they're actually watching the film as they're talking, which is always a plus. Because it doesn't lag too much. Because of Jennifer Tilly. So they continuously talk throughout the whole thing. So it's entertaining, it's informative, it's fun, and I actually really did enjoy this commentary. Okay, so the last extra on this disc, of course, is the theatrical trailer for Bride of Chucky. And if you've never seen this thing, like I had never seen it, it's a plus. But if you have seen it, then you're not missing much. It's a trailer.
So there you go. There is Child's Play for Bride of Chucky. I consider the best out of the whole series, but Cult of Chucky is coming out this year, so that's what I'm saying. It's so far my favorite.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too.
Go ahead and shoot. I'll be back. I always come back.
So here we go. We got, 3 more Chuckies still to bring you, and all month long we're bringing you more stuff than just Child's Play. Got more horror films, just a ton of stuff on your way. And if you are horrified good, because that's what we're trying to do.
We're trying to scare the crap out of you so that you join us and subscribe. That's what it is. We scare you into subscribing. All this month long, we'll scare the crap out of you unless you subscribe to us. So that's what you got to do. And you also got to hit the little bell up there. That'll let you know when we're here to horrify you. And then you can like us. And you can also leave your comments about Bride of Chucky or this review or whatever you want to talk about, even if it's about the weather.
So you want to talk about horrifying? What's next? Seed of Chucky. So yeah, that's going to be one of the scariest, most horrifying reviews that I will ever probably give you, ever.
Oh boy, I can't wait for this one. I hadn't even seen it yet.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be horrifying.
Yay, but dying is such a bitch.